It is a pleasant afternoon. LiQing spends the day catching up on his reading. He looks and finds QiYu poring over the memorials, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He didn't expect that his wayward husband would come back after storming off the other day. It was an unexpected turn of events, as QiYu is the type to use his muscles more than his brain. LiQing wonders if QiYu is up to something. QiYu pores over the letters, having a constipated look on his face. It is no different from when they were young. Some things never change. QiYu notices him and asks LiQing what he's looking at. LiQing sweats, worried that he'd offended his volatile husband. QiYu watches him silently, and it makes LiQing more nervous. After a beat, he commands LiQing to come closer. LiQing obeys and walks up to QiYu's desk. QiYu assures him that he does not bite and that LiQing should not fear him. That's debatable. He offers LiQing a seat. QiYu remembers how full of life LiQing was when they were young, but he grew up into a boring guy. LiQing sits at the table, and QiYu hands over his brush. He then tells LiQing to start writing, to LiQing's surprise. That's scum. I knew he's up to something. He tells LiQing to write the memories for him. His emperor father wants him to review the memorials and learn from them. His father always tells him that in order to be a good emperor, he must learn the affairs of the common people. As LiQing passed with flying colors in the imperial exams, he's perfect for the job. LiQing argues that making someone else do the work defeats the emperor's true purpose. LiQing observes that QiYu did not change at all. He used to make him do his homework when they were young. QiYu argues back that he got the gist of the important memorials, and the remaining topics are inconsequential. He just wants LiQing to write a few sentences. After glancing at them, LiQing tells him that the emperor will notice the difference in their handwriting, to which QiYu replies that he can transcribe whatever LiQing writes, so that he can present his notes to the emperor in his handwriting. QiYu thinks he's very clever. LiQing laments that QiYu could be clever and trying to do things the lazy way. Although LiQing does not want to do it, he wants to compromise. He cannot outright disobey QiYu, as it will only cause him pain, but he cannot do all the work for him. He decides to read through the memorials and ask QiYu how you would handle the various scenarios. One of them is about coastal provinces being plundered by pirates. QiYu offhandedly answers that the job of protecting the people lies with the coastal garrison, and they should be punished for failing to protect the provinces. To redeem themselves, they should kill a pirate. The capital will reward them for each kill, with no reward limit. This way, the pirates will not be so confident. LiQing looks at him, stunned, with a look on his face. It's as if he's questioning himself about why he fell for a guy with only 2 brain cells to rub together. LiQing writes down the answer on the paper. Trying to steer QiYu's answer in the right direction, he asks what kind of assistance should be given to the victims, how much relief they should get, and if there have been instances in the past when the ones at fault were rewarded. QiYu blurts out some random numbers on top of his head. He initially recommended 10,000, then reduced it to 8,000. He reasons that they should not be too generous, as people may get lazy. LiQing coaxes him to say more. QiYu reasons that if the people start to rely on the government's welfare, it will cause a revolt when the relief stops coming. LiQing finds no fault in his answer, so he writes it down according to QiYu's instructions. QiYu finally catches on. LiQing is making him review the memorials, instead of doing it himself. He watches LiQing and blushes at the sight. Xiao Di enters the room to bring LiQing his meal. LiQing tells her that he will eat after he's done. To their surprise, QiYu tells her that he will be having his meals at LiQing's place in the next few days, and orders Xiao Di to prepare his meals. Xiao Di immediately obeys. LiQing looks at QiYu like he's grown 2 heads. QiYu asks him what's so surprising about his plans to have a meal there. They will be working a lot together, so it will be more efficient if they have their meals together. Xiao Di smiles as she watches the two interact, happy that her master is finally getting along with the crown prince. Hopefully, things will get better from here. QiYu could at least become civil and respectful to LiQing. The next day, LiQing decides to take a walk in the courtyard. He has been cooped up in the house, and he only found the strength to go out that day. A bluebird swoops ahead and drops in front of LiQing. The bird seems to be injured. It tries to flap its wings, but its efforts are futile. LiQing reaches out to help the bird, but he notices that the bird smells weird. Xiao Di warns him to be careful, as the bird's blood may be harmful to LiQing. From the sidelines, Hu Nu approaches them. His face looks like he's looking for trouble. LiQing tells him that he's simply trying to help an injured bird. Hu Nu pretends to be a gracious person, offering to help the pitiful bird that does not have long to live. LiQing can't help but think that Hu Nu-er is mocking him. LiQing stands in front of the bird, preventing Hu Nu-er from picking it up. He orders Xiao Di to pick up the bird and take care of it. Once the bird is feeling better, he plans to release it in the wild. LiQing is just too nice. Secretly, Hu Nu-er rejoices that LiQing took the bird. QiYu approaches them, and Hu Nu-er quickly greets him. His greeting is so familiar compared to LiQing's, who acknowledges his husband's presence with formality. QiYu wonders why LiQing is not saying anything. Hu Nu-er explains that LiQing is just so tired, and that QiYu should not take LiQing's offense to heart. He acts like he's the legal wife. Who are you to talk to on behalf of LiQing? LiQing watches the two interact, feeling like a stranger watching a lonely couple. LiQing excuses himself, as he understands that QiYu only came to his mansion to review the memorials with him. Unexpectedly, QiYu grabs his arm and drags him to a quiet place. Where are you taking LiQing? QiYu takes LiQing to a secluded place in the capital. LiQing had no idea that a scenery as good as this existed in the capital. QiYu tells him that he found this beautiful place when he went to the military camp. LiQing asks him why he would show him this place. QiYu answers that he received praise from his emperor father, who did not make too many corrections to his proposals. This lifts QiYu's mood, so he's feeling generous at the moment and decides to take LiQing on a trip. How I wish you could be generous every day. However, the emperor commented on his ugly calligraphy and requested that he practice more. LiQing encourages him to work on his calligraphy, which triggers QiYu. He tells LiQing that he is aware of what LiQing is doing. LiQing has been sneakily making him learn the stuff he does not like, so he just wants to be praised without doing the work. That's not how it works, you lazy bum. LiQing honestly tells him that he only wishes for QiYu to become a good emperor. LiQing realizes that QiYu can see through his maneuvering, but has not said anything about it until now. LiQing panics. Who knew what QiYu would do? Unexpectedly, QiYu lets him go when he sees LiQing's pitiful reaction. Confidently, he tells LiQing that he is bound to be a great emperor someday. LiQing knows QiYu well. Only someone with a princely bearing like Jun QiYu would be so confident. Out of the blue, QiYu comments that LiQing has been cooped up in the palace, reading obscure books. Someone who's as weak as LiQing should take more walks. LiQing did not answer. He looks around, enjoying the scenery. The pinkish-white blossoms fall gently around them. He notices that QiYu's attitude toward him has changed for the better. He is more considerate of LiQing's needs and seems to be more comfortable around him. QiYu watches his spouse. LiQing looks so frail amongst the cherry blossoms. LiQing's lips curve in a smile, and his face has a dreamy look. QiYu does not understand why heat rushes to his face at LiQing's smile. He wonders what's making LiQing happy and what causes LiQing's thoughts to drift. Good things have to come to an end, and the two have to return to the capital. Before they return home, LiQing takes this opportunity to grab some items from his favorite bookstore. QiYu complains that LiQing would take upon himself to look for books and ink treasures when he could order the servants to do it for him. LiQing tells him that he'll be finished soon, and it's no trouble for him since he can do it himself. As LiQing looks for the book that helps put people's minds at ease, a stranger approaches him respectfully, bowing at him. LiQing notes how unusual it is for someone to enter the bookstore at this time. It is more unusual for a barbarian to come visit and pay him respect. Alarm bells ring in LiQing's head when he notices that the barbarian enters his personal space and whispers cryptically in his ear. Quietly, the barbarian asks him if he knows what his real fate is. Is this barbarian some sort of soothsayer or fortune teller? Before LiQing could ask him what he meant, the barbarian walked away from LiQing's bafflement. QiYu, who finally got impatient after waiting, approaches LiQing. He tells LiQing that they have to return, so that they can eat and LiQing can take his medicine. He's really just hungry, but it's a big change, as he's now considerate about LiQing's health, still thinking about the strange barbarian. LiQing tells QiYu that he found the books he needs, and they should return. QiYu looks at him like he wants to say something. They return to the mansion and start to review the memorials. LiQing gives QiYu some suggestions on how to write the memorials and what questions to ask the emperor. QiYu wonders why LiQing would read the memorials so closely. LiQing's eyes are not so good, so he needs to read the memorials close to the candlelight. QiYu watches him closely. LiQing's profile is illuminated by the candlelight, and the warm glow accentuates his beautiful features. Suddenly, LiQing asks QiYu what he thinks about his suggestions. QiYu jolts in surprise as he was not listening, so he just tells LiQing to do whatever he thinks is best. QiYu observes that he can't help but look at LiQing. He clenches his fist as he musters the resolve to tell LiQing what he's been thinking. He grabs the memorials from LiQing's hand, which makes LiQing worry. Unexpectedly, he tells LiQing that they should not divorce. Is QiYu turning a new leaf as he finally realizes what a treasure LiQing is? Silence hangs in the air after QiYu's sudden declaration. LiQing drops the brush he's been holding. His brain could not believe that QiYu would utter such words. There's no way that QiYu would suggest that they stay together when he's been adamant about divorce, deciding that he must have been hallucinating. LiQing changes the topic and comments on the messy state of their table. QiYu lets out an exclamation of disbelief. LiQing continues to look down, not wanting to meet his gaze. LiQing scolds himself for being weak. A kind gesture from QiYu makes him melt. QiYu breaks the silence between them and makes it clear that he is not in love with LiQing. QiYu decides that being together is not so bad and that they have been getting along. LiQing visibly deflates upon hearing this, so QiYu lifts up LiQing's chin to make LiQing look at him. QiYu explains that even if he divorces LiQing, the emperor will find a suitable wife for him. Rather than have a stranger become his spouse, it is better to have LiQing beside him. LiQing's eyes widened. He looks like he got slapped by the cold, bitter truth in the face. Poor LiQing. LiQing pushes QiYu's hands away, telling him that he understands. LiQing is obviously disappointed. However, he's used to it. Divorce is sorry behind. As much as he wants to be with QiYu, he does not want to be someone he has to endure. He asks QiYu if there's someone he likes or if he's been in love. QiYu can't think of anyone he wants to be with and is annoyed that LiQing is asking these questions. He can't help but think that LiQing is up to something again. He gets up, dismissing LiQing's questions. LiQing apologizes for his forwardness. QiYu leaves, but not before telling LiQing that he would be back to transcribe the memorials. Left alone in the study, LiQing reflects on his actions. He admits to pushing QiYu's buttons and being too intrusive. You're his husband, and he just asked you to stay in a loveless marriage. It's just right for you to know where you actually stand and what to expect. He knows that he made QiYu angry. He thinks that QiYu probably thinks he's being ignorant. All this stress made LiQing's nose bleed. Drops of the red liquid stain the memorial, and no matter how much he rubs off the blood, it just won't come off. LiQing looks at the bloodstains worriedly, a reminder that he does not have long to live. All this stress is not good for LiQing. He should be resting, instead of helping that good-for-nothing QiYu. The next day, QiYu was told by the emperor to stay after the court meetings. He asks his emperor father why he was told to stay. Instead of answering, Emperor Jun Xuanxiao asks him what he's been up to. QiYu answers that he has been diligent in his studies and has been returning home early to review the memorials after the court sessions. The emperor asks him if the task has been so difficult that it has affected his health. The emperor tells him that there are bloodstains on the memorials, which makes him worried about QiYu's health. QiYu wonders what the emperor is talking about. Wrong answer. His baffled look made the emperor realize that QiYu had been deceiving him. Jun Xuanxiao throws the memorial at QiYu. The jig is up. The emperor rages at QiYu in disappointment. He can't believe that he saw someone so irresponsible, making someone else review and write the proposals. Wasn't QiYu supposed to transcribe the memorials? You must have submitted the one LiQing wrote. You only have yourself to blame for that one. Before QiYu could string some words of apology, Emperor Jun Xuanxiao continued with his tirade. He scolds his son for being arrogant and neglectful of his duties. Rumors have been circulating that he is unfit to become the emperor's heir. The emperor regrets being too lenient with him. The emperor thinks back to the time that QiYu returned home with a slave. He knew that he should have set his foot down. To QiYu's horror, the emperor makes a decision. He declares that the slave, who knew her, will be executed. That's a little too harsh. Why not make QiYu do some hard labor or make him memorize some boring script instead? Or throw him out into the wild and live his life as a poor person? That should teach him. QiYu heatedly shouts back in protest. He reasons that who knew her has nothing to do with his actions, and it's a harsh punishment to bestow on anyone. Emperor Jun Xuanxiao does not trust who knew her, and does not believe that the slave has no ill will against them. QiYu wonders if Song LiQing has something to do with this. He's the only one who knows that QiYu has not been reviewing the memorials on his own. He suspects that LiQing told the emperor to cause trouble for who knew her and to control QiYu. Hiding behind the emperor's power, LiQing wants to elevate his own position so that QiYu will not be able to divorce him. QiYu decides that no matter how much the emperor wants to force him, he will not stay with LiQing. Just when things are getting better for these two, things happen that take them 100 steps back. QiYu returns to the mansion, and a Unique announces his presence. It is apparent on his face that his morning did not go well, and LiQing approaches him with hesitation. He looks at LiQing coldly and slaps his hand. His slap leaves a red bruise on LiQing's delicate hand. The poor crown princess looks at LiQing's back, wondering what happened to set his husband off. From the sidelines, a Unique announces that the emperor orders the punishment of the slave, Hu Nu-er. Hu Nu-er will receive 50 strikes as punishment, and he orders the crown prince and crown princess to watch. That's just cruel. Approaching the allotted seats, LiQing asks QiYu what's going on. QiYu is already seated and maliciously blames LiQing. The Unique asks LiQing to take his seat, as the emperor wanted Hu Nu-er to kneel in front of LiQing while being punished. Jun Xuanxiao, you're not doing LiQing any favor. You're actually making it worse for him. The emperor wanted to make Hu Nu-er realize where his place is and to show respect to LiQing. Hu Nu-er struggles against the people holding him. He finds it unfair as he has not done anything wrong. He begs QiYu to save him. The servants slapped him to shut him up. LiQing still does not understand what's going on and sits there dumbfounded, fear etched on his face. QiYu tells him to watch. He vows to make LiQing suffer Hu Nu-er's humiliation tenfold. Hu Nu-er begs and begs, but his words seem to fall on deaf ears. The Unique accuses him of bewitching the crown prince, leading him astray. The emperor wanted to execute him, but decided to be more lenient due to the crown prince's feelings. The emperor wanted him to know his place and be respectful to his betters. This shakes Hu Nu-er to the core. There's only one person who'd wish him harm, and it's none other than the crown princess, LiQing. Hu Nu-er screams, blaming his misfortune on LiQing. He suspects that LiQing got jealous because QiYu favors him. He tells LiQing that he should have killed him instead, rather than made the emperor do the deed for him. These words further implicate LiQing. Knowing that his words would not be heard, LiQing sat rooted in his spot, and his world turned upside down. QiYu's eyes look at him with loathing, telling LiQing how he should not have trusted him. If you could transcribe the memorial like you're supposed to, then this would not have happened. LiQing asks if he really believed that LiQing could do such a thing. QiYu can't think of anyone else who would tell the emperor that he has been making LiQing review the memorials. LiQing has all the reasons to punish Hu Nu-er, but does not have the guts to do it himself. So, he made the emperor do it. LiQing looks down in disappointment. QiYu should know that LiQing would never do such a thing. QiYu looks away while snidely, commenting that LiQing's heart does not match his appearance. The Unique announces that the punishment has been carried out. Hu Nu-er falls to the hard ground, looking pitiful. I feel bad for Hu Nu-er. The Unique bows to QiYu, wishing that the crown prince does not vent his anger on him. He was only doing his job, and he could not go against the emperor's wishes. QiYu tells him to leave, briskly walking towards Hu Nu-er to help him. LiQing looks at the couple. A stranger from the outside is looking in. QiYu looks at him with deep-seated hatred. Carrying Hu Nu-er in his arms, he announces that he will never set foot in LiQing's mansion again. Since LiQing wanted to be the crown princess so much, he can live alone in the main courtyard, all by himself. He looks down at LiQing in disdain, sarcastically asking if he's happy. Before LiQing could defend himself, QiYu turned his back, not wanting to listen to what LiQing had to say. LiQing stays in his seat, still in a daze. It was only when Xiao Di invited him to come inside did he leave his seat. With wobbling steps, he enters the pavilion. When Xiao Di enters the room, she finds her master huddled against the wall, his arms wrapped around his knees. His body is shaking. With sympathy, she calls out to him, and he looks up to her, with tears running down his cheeks. LiQing tells her that he wants to go home. She asks him what he means as he is home. Like a lost child, LiQing tells her that this is not home. I feel sorry for Hu Nu-er, but LiQing has nothing to do with his punishment. LiQing tells Xiao Di to pack his things. He wants to take a breather and go home to his parents' house. He does not have very long to live, so he wants to take this opportunity to go home and properly say goodbye to his parents. Yes, dear, take a breather. Maybe your parents can convince you to divorce his sorry ass. In Hu Nu-er's pavilion, the sound of laughter can be heard outside. QiYu compliments Hu Nu-er's clever ideas. The two play around in merriment, not minding the third person who enters the room. LiQing approaches the couple, intending to ask QiYu to accompany him to his parents' house. It would be weird if he showed up without his husband, and they might worry that things are not going well. Just go home without QiYu. It would be worse when they saw his sour face. QiYu looks at him in annoyance. He asks LiQing why he came and flat out tells him that there's no way he'd forgive him even if he begs. Without a beat, LiQing answers that he knows. QiYu wonders if LiQing is not taking his threats seriously. LiQing explains that he wants QiYu to accompany him to his parents' home to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. Hearing that LiQing's course of action was to run to his parents rather than apologize to who knew her, QiYu got more mad at him. LiQing explains that he wants to spend time with his parents and assures them that he is well. His father just got back from the barracks and LiQing has not had the chance to spend time with him since his return. QiYu looks at LiQing like he's the scummiest of scums. He realized that LiQing wanted them to pretend to be a happy couple. He suspects that LiQing just wanted to complain to his parents when he's not looking. He does not trust LiQing to be honest. LiQing then tells him that he will have to go by himself and prepares to leave. Guilt twists in QiYu's heart. He does not understand why he feels this way, but looking at LiQing's retreating back, he feels a twinge of sadness. He stops LiQing from leaving, telling him that LiQing could meet his parents during the emperor's birthday. LiQing looks at him, hopefully. Stepping forward, QiYu tells LiQing that he could go under certain conditions. It depends on what LiQing could do just to see his parents. No, don't make him suffer more than he already has. Just let him go home. LiQing asks him what he has to do. He offers to review QiYu's memorials for him. QiYu agrees, but Hu Nu suddenly interjects and maliciously suggests that he wanted to eat some pine nuts. Since QiYu is easily manipulated, he cruelly tells LiQing to peel some pine nuts for Hu Nu. He does not expect LiQing to agree and just wants LiQing to beg. To his surprise, LiQing agrees and walks over to Hu Nu's table. To add to LiQing's humiliation, he tells him to kneel while peeling the nuts. He wants LiQing to show his true face. A prideful person would never stoop to kneel in front of a slave. LiQing still for a moment, and QiYu mocks him for wanting to back out. However, LiQing reaches for the pine nuts and tells him that he will do it. He'll do whatever it takes to see his father again. He's dying and just wants to see his parents for the last time. Have some mercy, QiYu. Stop bullying him. LiQing's hands are soft and are not good at peeling nuts. Hu Nu teases him for being too slow and too weak. QiYu observes him and wonders how someone like LiQing could endure the humiliation. LiQing continues to peel the nuts until night falls. The hard nuts cause his hand to bleed. Oh no, LiQing has a blood disease, which makes him bleed a lot when wounded. This is not good for him. Red stains the nuts he's been peeling. Hu Nu eggs him on, maliciously making him peel more nuts to make LiQing suffer more. Finally having enough, QiYu makes him stop saying that there's no way he'd eat contaminated food, calling LiQing useless and mocking him for not being able to do anything right. LiQing reminds him that he promised to attend the emperor's birthday with him. QiYu agrees and LiQing thanks him politely. This time, instead of addressing him as QiYu, LiQing addressed him as Your Highness. The formality leaves a bitter taste in QiYu's mouth. LiQing's coldness unsettles him. Something has changed in LiQing, and QiYu does not like it. He does not like it at all. Hu Nu observes that QiYu is acting weird. Turning QiYu's attention back to him, he massages his shoulders and sweetly asks QiYu if he feels sorry for LiQing. QiYu complains that LiQing never addressed him as Your Highness. He always addresses him by his name. Hu Nu tells him that LiQing has finally learned where his place is. However, QiYu is not convinced. The way LiQing addresses him is now cold. On the day of the emperor's birthday, LiQing and QiYu share a carriage to the venue. He points out the tassel that LiQing has been wearing, effectively mocking him for wearing something old and cheap. Seeing LiQing wear the tassel he gave him when they were kind, QiYu becomes assured that LiQing still has feelings for him, and that his sudden coldness is but a facade. LiQing looks down at the tassel, his mind elsewhere. QiYu asks him why he would continue to wear something so cheap when there are so many jeweled tassels available for him. LiQing's father might think that QiYu is mistreating his son and making him wear something too old and cheap. When he is about to accuse LiQing of making him look bad, LiQing interrupts him, telling him that he won't wear it again. QiYu can't believe his ears. He's had enough of you. It is a lavish affair befitting the emperor's birthday. From the sidelines, Prince Lo Lan observes that LiQing has lost some weight. Annoyed that Prince Lo Lan has been eyeing his husband, QiYu calls his attention, covertly asking if there is something wrong with his eyes, and if he has not been receiving proper nourishment. Prince Lolan asks if LiQing has been working so hard that he has become sick. QiYu wanted to hide the fact that LiQing is not well, but Prince Lolan obviously wanted everyone to know. In a long-winded speech, he tells Prince Lolan to mind his own business and to focus on the birthday celebrant instead. He asks Prince Lolan if he still has feelings for LiQing. Prince Lolan assures him that he wouldn't dare. He simply finds it strange that the two do not seem to get along well. He observes that QiYu must be too fickle to lose interest in his husband within 3 months of marriage. QiYu slams his hands on the table in anger. LiQing sits quietly beside him, but is worried that the banquet will be ruined. He does not want to miss the chance to have a talk with his father. He picks up some sweets with his chopsticks and feeds them to QiYu, acting like a doting wife. QiYu jumps down on it like a child who wants to make his rival jealous. LiQing explains that he was just not feeling well and has caught a cold due to the changing season. He politely thanks Prince Lolan for worrying about him and assures him that he and QiYu are getting along well as a couple. Prince Lolan does not want to back down. He knows exactly what's going on behind closed doors. LiQing is forced to tell him to mind his own business in the politest way possible. Upon hearing that LiQing views him as an outsider, Prince Lolan apologizes for butting in with LiQing's marital affairs. He downs his drink while lamenting the unfairness of it all. He genuinely cares about LiQing, but he is being considered an outsider, while QiYu, who caused LiQing nothing but pain, is to be LiQing's husband. The table where LiQing and QiYu are situated is quiet. The two do not bother to interact with each other. QiYu's mood sours, which is LiQing's cue to stay quiet. Otherwise, he'd have to endure QiYu's wrath. Breaking the awkward silence, the emperor calls LiQing's attention. He encourages LiQing to speak to his father, as they have not gotten the chance to do it since LiQing's wedding to the crown prince. LiQing gratefully obeys and walks over to his father's table. LiQing bows respectfully to his father, thinking that this may be the last time that he can be filial. General Songqing carefully helped LiQing to sit up. He worriedly asks his son if he's doing well. LiQing lies skillfully, assuring him that he is treated well. Upon holding his shoulders, General Song can tell how thin LiQing has become. He wonders if his son is ill. LiQing tells him that he has just recovered from an illness, but is now doing well. It is not easy to fool the general when LiQing lifted his hand. His father saw the wounds on his fingers. He asks LiQing if it is the crown prince's doing. LiQing explains that the wounds are due to an accident. For a father, it is hard to see his own child suffer. General Song knows that there is no love between LiQing and QiYu. He knows that LiQing was pressured into accepting the marriage. Instead of being honored, his child is humiliated. General Songqing promises to take him home, even at the expense of his life. He drags LiQing by the arm, intent on confronting the crown prince. QiYu pretends to be nonchalant. With the angry look blazing in the general's eyes, he suspects that LiQing complained to his dad to stir up some trouble. General Song asks if LiQing made such a grievous offense to be treated so harshly. He accuses QiYu of hurting his son and starving him. QiYu pretends to not know what he's talking about. He tells him that QiYu is just sick, and there's no way that he has anything to do with it. He even tells him that he had called many doctors to treat LiQing's illness until he got better. LiQing stands to the side in silence. He'd rather not add fuel to the fire. General Song finally asks an important question. He asks QiYu where he was while LiQing was ill. QiYu hesitates. He does not want to say that he stayed by QiYu's side. Instead, he answers that he had soldiers and servants watch over him. This is not the answer that General Song wants to hear. He complains that QiYu should be the one to stay by LiQing's side, as he is his husband. QiYu shot back, saying that Prince Lolan's public proposal humiliated him. Does that have anything to do with anything? It's not your husband who publicly proposed to Prince Lolan. Someone's in love with your husband. QiYu excuses his behavior by telling the general that he only left for a few days to contemplate. General Song acquiesces yet sarcastically acknowledges that QiYu is faultless. He tells QiYu that if he's so dissatisfied, that he wouldn't mind if LiQing returned home. QiYu did not answer. From a distance, the emperor has been observing them. His commanding voice asks QiYu what he said to General Song that made him look so mad. LiQing avoids the impending disaster by telling the emperor that they were just discussing what gift they prepared for him. LiQing tells QiYu to hand over the longevity peach. QiYu made himself to the emperor. LiQing brings the box to the emperor. Earlier that day, LiQing asked QiYu's opinion on the 2 gift options he had acquired for the emperor. He was able to acquire a red coral from the East Sea and a glass lantern from the West region. QiYu tells him that there are no riches that the emperor does not have, and that Hu Nu has already prepared a gift. They would pretend that QiYu made the longevity peaches himself to appease the emperor. He even has the guts to pass off someone else's work as his own. He never learns. LiQing hesitates in handing the gift to the emperor, but decides to push forward. He tells the emperor that the longevity cake was made by QiYu himself, touched that his son would make something with his own hand for him. The emperor quickly had a taste. By the way, where is Empress Shen Yu? It's his husband's birthday. Where is he? Before LiQing could return to his seat, the box of longevity peaches clattered to the ground. The emperor's head drops down on the table, and QiYu rushes towards his father, alarmed. Emperor Jun Xuanxiao clutches his chest, his face contorted in agony. QiYu calls out to him in alarm, genuinely worried for his father. He cannot fathom how this could happen. He immediately called for the imperial physician. Securing the perimeter, he prevented anyone from leaving the hall. Otherwise, they would be executed. LiQing tells him to bring the emperor to the inner hall, away from prying eyes. His father is what keeps the empire together. The court is filled with traitors, intent on furthering their own means. If news gets out that the emperor fell, it will cause chaos. After bringing the emperor to the inner court, the imperial physician quickly attends to him. Qi tells him that the cause is poisoning. QiYu can't believe it. How could the emperor get poisoned when everything he eats is tested for poison beforehand? He orders Qi to treat the emperor quickly. QiYu tries to explain that it's not that easy. He has to know what poisoned the emperor to determine the correct antidote. LiQing calmly suggests that they check the food the emperor ate. QiYu quickly agrees and sends Qi and the other doctors to check. They use mice to determine which food was poisoned. They finally found the source. They present QiYu. The box of longevity peaches. Lying with a plum innocent tree is a dead mouse. QiYu did not waste time confronting Hu Nu. He slams him down, intending to beat him up. He can't believe that someone he pampered more than his crown princess would betray him like this. Hu Nu looks at him in fear. QiYu lets him go to allow him to confess. He asks Hu Nu why he poisoned the emperor father. Hu Nu acts like he does not know. He swears that he never wanted to bring harm to the emperor. QiYu tells him that the longevity peaches he made were poisoned. Hu Nu looks at him in bewilderment. He reminds QiYu that he watched Hu Nu make the peaches. To prove that he did not do it, Hu Nu ate the remaining peaches from the same batch he baked that morning. Hu Nu ate all the peaches until the tray was empty. After a while, he kneels in front of QiYu, still alive, showing no sign of being poisoned. He looks up at QiYu, begging him to believe him. QiYu takes pity on him and orders him to get up. He slumps on the floor, his head aching due to the accumulated stress. There must be someone else who poisoned the emperor. Hu Nu tells him to think of the people who handled the longevity peaches. Whoever, this must be the culprit. QiYu thinks back on who handled the peach. There's only him and LiQing. He looks back at Hu Nu, scolding him for implying that LiQing did it. There's no way that LiQing would do such a thing. Hu Nu kowtows in front of him, telling him that there is a secret that he knows. He confesses that LiQing was sired by the former emperor of the Central Plains. His father is Emperor Xiao, who was Emperor Jun Xuanxiao's sworn brother, the one whom the current emperor betrayed to usurp the throne. Hu Nu crouched on the floor, begging for leniency. He kept this important information from the prince and wished that he granted him pardon. QiYu can't believe his ears. There's no way that his childhood friend turned husband was the heir of the former kingdom. He draws his sword, intent on making Hu Nu pay for spreading false rumors. Hu Nu insists that what he says is true, claiming that he'd gladly give up his life to reveal the culprit's true identity. He explains that Emperor Xiao had a consort, who was given to his king's father when he was young. She was crazy and always introduced herself as Consort 1. Whenever she sees someone, she asks for her son. She describes her son as having a mole on his neck. QiYu remembers the mole on LiQing's neck. He realized that being the former emperor's son could be a motive for LiQing to harm Emperor Jun Xuanxiao. Hu Nu begged him to search the archive to prove that what he said was true, threatening to cause severe bodily harm if Hu Nu was lying. QiYu leaves for the archives. He turns his back on the slave and does not see the smirk gracing Hu Nu's lips. It is a smile of victory. He put his own life at risk, but ultimately won. In the archives, QiYu searched for proof of LiQing's birthright. All records point to the fact that LiQing was Emperor Xiao's son. As he turns his head to a forgotten corner of the archive, he sees a painting showing the former emperor in all his glory. He can see LiQing's features on the fallen emperor's face. It cannot be denied that LiQing is the heir of the fallen empire. QiYu's face controls anger. LiQing will pay. In Emperor Jun Xuanxiao's chambers, LiQing rinsed the washcloth like a diligent son-in-law. He is so absorbed with the task that he does not see QiYu approaching him from behind. As LiQing wrings the cloth in his hands, QiYu grabs his bandaged hands, stopping him. When he looks up, he is greeted by QiYu's cold, unforgiving eyes. LiQing looks at QiYu. To break the silence between them, he tells him that, due to the poison, the emperor has yet to gain consciousness. LiQing does not expect what happens next. QiYu calls for the guards to arrest LiQing for the heinous crime of poisoning Emperor Jun Xuanxiao. LiQing shall be confined to the cold dungeons, where he will be interrogated. Although surprised, LiQing looks at him calmly, asking if QiYu is serious. With his grip tightening on LiQing's hand, QiYu vows to never trust LiQing again. LiQing purses his lips, trying to contain the betrayal, fear, and disappointment he is feeling. Releasing his hand from QiYu's grip, he calmly tells him that he understands and will voluntarily walk towards the dungeons. He shall walk towards his doom with dignity. A man resigned to his fate. It's as if he's no longer surprised by the extent to which QiYu would go to make him suffer. In the cold dungeons, LiQing is subjected to several rounds of interrogations. Devices meant to cause severe pain litter the floor. One of the guards warns him that all the things that he will be subjected to are by the crown prince's order. He tells LiQing, who is of noble blood, not to bear their grudges, as they are only following orders, respectfully, and even addressing him with his proper title. The guards tell LiQing that they will go easy on him if he signs a confession admitting to orchestrating the emperor's poisoning. Exhausted from the pain he had to endure, LiQing tells them repeatedly that he has no cause to harm the emperor. He calmly tells them that he will not confess. The guards commend LiQing's stubbornness, but he has a task to do. He orders the other guards to bring in more devices to punish LiQing. A contraction made of 6 thin bamboos connected by thin ropes was placed in LiQing's hand. Each finger was trapped in the thin wood. Panic gripped LiQing's heart when he recognized what the contraption was for. He politely asked the guard to change it, as he needed his hands to write. He is a scholar and was even awarded the prestigious recognition of Tanhualang. Tanhualang is the 3rd honor to receive after passing the imperial exam. The guard tells LiQing that he would feel bad if he ruined LiQing's hands, as he's heard of LiQing's talents in writing. He tells LiQing that if he wishes to receive a different punishment, then he must first sign the confession. With fear etched on his face, LiQing resigns to his fate. Quietly, he tells the guard that he needs to confess to what he did not do, and then he no longer wants his hands. As if trying to convince himself, LiQing screams that he no longer wants them. He screams some more, as the guard crushes the talented hands that many could only dream to have. The head guard comments that LiQing may look weak, but his pride is admirable. LiQing lays on the cold floor, finally able to take a break. The guard's attention is drawn by the arrival of the crown prince. QiYu asks the head guard if LiQing has confessed. The guard tells him that LiQing refused to sign the confession, even after receiving severe punishment. The guard tells him that he is worried for LiQing's health, as he has grown weak and thin during his time at the dungeons. He fears that LiQing may not survive in the dungeon. Even the dungeon guard feels pity for LiQing. Why can't QiYu grant him an ounce of sympathy? LiQing looks pitiful as he lays on the cold, dirty floor. QiYu tells the guard to stop their prattling and tells them that he will take over the punishment. He kneels down to conserve LiQing. Just in time, LiQing wakes up and hoarsely whispers that he did not poison the emperor. LiQing's hands are badly injured, and his body is shaking, but the pitiful sight did not move QiYu. Without regard to his husband's comfort, QiYu lifts up LiQing's chin to make LiQing face him. He mocks LiQing for losing his ability to write. The emperor used to praise LiQing's beautiful calligraphy, a skill that LiQing spent a lot of time mastering. With his bones shattered, he will no longer be able to draw those beautiful, artistic lines. LiQing insists that he is innocent. Someone who willingly gives up their life's achievements cannot be the villain. He looks up at QiYu, hoping that the crown prince will believe his innocence. He even grabs QiYu's clothes out of desperation. However, the hard, calculating look in QiYu's eyes speaks volumes. QiYu thinks hard about the events that led to this. His father, Emperor Jun Xuanxiao, usurped the throne from Emperor Xiao. who happens to be LiQing's biological father. He can't believe that someone who claims to be as loyal as General Songqing would adopt a child spawned by the fallen emperor. He grabs LiQing's wrist, not mindful of the pain he's causing him. LiQing hisses in pain, but keeps quiet. QiYu hardens his heart. LiQing must have held a grudge all these years for revenge. All of LiQing's declarations of love and tenderness are lies. He orchestrated their betrothal, planning to gain the emperor's trust so that he could be close enough to enact his plans. QiYu looks into LiQing's eyes, demanding to hear the truth. He asks LiQing if he truly loves him. LiQing is stunned by the question. Letting go of QiYu's robes, LiQing smiles wanly. His image is that of a man who lost his faith upon realizing that everything he's done is for nothing. He can't believe that his dream is being put into question. All his life's work and dreams boil down to one question. Did he truly love QiYu? LiQing chuckles to himself. His small chuckles eventually turn into laughter, punctuated by a series of coughs racking his thin frame. To LiQing, the question is absurd. Running out of patience, QiYu asks him why he is laughing. LiQing asks him what he did that warranted such a question. Why would QiYu still question his love? Why would QiYu think that LiQing has anything to do with the emperor's current condition? Even when there is no evidence, QiYu tells him to stop spouting nonsense and demands a straight answer. LiQing wipes the blood on his chin and looks at QiYu with a weak smile. This time, the look he gives him is not a look of devotion. It has the look of a broken-hearted man. He tells QiYu that he has loved him since they were children. His father used to joke that the crown prince would cling to LiQing when they were toddlers. The crown prince was only a year old at the time, and he would not let LiQing go. LiQing concocted a fantasy in his head that QiYu was his fated one. Even when they met at the academy, when QiYu presented himself as a selfish, domineering brat, LiQing tolerated him. He allowed QiYu to bully him and indulged in his whims. He never thought that they'd grow so distant when they were inseparable as children. QiYu remembers that he never regarded LiQing as anyone special. LiQing was a good friend that QiYu could take advantage of. He wonders if LiQing harbored feelings for him then. LiQing continues with his tale. When the emperor offered to marry QiYu to him, LiQing felt like the luckiest person alive. However, it was all fake. He never thought that he'd achieve the two things he'd strived to have all his life: the honor of passing the imperial exam with flying colors and marrying the one he loves. He never thought that he'd deserve such blessings. He felt that if he waited it out someday, QiYu would turn a new leaf, and the misunderstandings between them would clear up. LiQing looks at QiYu in the eye, accusingly. He asks QiYu if he ever thought of LiQing as a human. He asked if QiYu ever considered that LiQing feelings could get hurt. LiQing finally realized that he placed his love on the wrong person. Love shouldn't be this hard. He regrets loving the wrong man. With his body weak, he beckons QiYu closer, promising to tell him the truth. QiYu complies, intending to get this ordeal over with. LiQing whispers the words that will set him free. He does not love QiYu anymore. He repeats these words like a prayer, each sentence rising an octave, cementing the fact that he, Song LiQing, is no longer QiYu's plaything. QiYu sits up, stunned. He can't believe what he's hearing. His love for him was constant all his life. To hear him say it, a part of him felt cold and empty. LiQing falls to the floor, his face buried on the makeshift bed of straws. Without a care for his pitiful husband slumped on the floor, QiYu shakes off the emptiness he's feeling. He convinces himself that it should not matter whether his traitor loves him or not. He coldly asks LiQing if he just fell out of love at this moment or if he just lost the will to continue his pretentious act. Either way, QiYu believes that LiQing unwittingly revealed his true self. He asks LiQing how he could repay the emperor in such a way. The emperor bestowed the title of Tanhualang on LiQing, recognizing his talents and even making him crown princess. LiQing does not answer. He probably thinks it's pointless or he's just too tired to argue. QiYu asks LiQing if he's finally satisfied, now that the emperor is in a coma. Irritated by LiQing's silence, LiQing demands that he answer. QiYu knows that LiQing's wounds are not life-threatening, so there is no reason for him to pretend like he died. Standing up, QiYu walks over to the furnace and grabs an iron poker, its ends blazing yellow from the fire. Brandishing the hot iron in front of LiQing, QiYu demands to know what poison LiQing used. Shakily, LiQing repeats that he did not poison the emperor. Unfortunately, QiYu does not believe him. He warns LiQing that if he does not tell the truth, then QiYu will not hesitate to brand his skin with a hot iron. It will leave a mark that even when healed, would brand LiQing as QiYu's possession, demeaning him to be less than human. QiYu silently prays that LiQing will admit the crimes so that he can go easier on LiQing. However, LiQing insists that it was not him. Resolve reflects in his eyes as he grabs the implement from QiYu's hand and scorches his flesh with a hot iron. LiQing screams while QiYu looks at him in shock. LiQing branded himself, effectively making himself a slave of the Jun Empire. Slumped, QiYu holds him up by his arms, insisting that he did not truly intend to cause LiQing harm. He only wanted LiQing to confess. He hears LiQing murmuring some words, but it was so quiet that he did not hear them. For the 100th time that day, LiQing tells him that he did not do it, tucking LiQing's head under his chin. He coos at him soothingly. After giving QiYu a false sense of security, LiQing bites him harshly. QiYu angrily pushes him away, demanding that LiQing stop being so stubborn. He will give LiQing one last chance. Wanting to get back at LiQing, he reminds him that he has General Song's life in his hands. LiQing's eyes widen at the mention of his father. He subserviently crawls towards QiYu, begging him to spare his father. General Song has been loyal to the emperor and has won war after war in the country of Jingo. His father does not deserve the harsh treatment. QiYu tells LiQing that he imprisoned all 373 people residing in the Song mansion, including the servants. Only execution awaits those who harm the emperor, and LiQing's family and servants are going to be considered accomplices. LiQing shakes visibly upon hearing this. Songqing did not do anything wrong. The kind general raised LiQing since he was a toddler and does not deserve to have his reputation dragged down to the mud and executed. LiQing realized that the noose of death is inescapable. He wonders what he ever did to deserve this fate. QiYu tells LiQing that his despair is apparent, when Songqing is only LiQing's adoptive father. The emperor is QiYu's biological father, therefore, QiYu would do anything for him. LiQing begs QiYu to wait and listen. QiYu looks down on him, a little surprised at LiQing's sudden compliance. Swallowing his pride, LiQing confesses to poisoning the emperor. He slams his forehead to the ground to kowtow, insisting that it was him who poisoned the emperor, and that the Song family has nothing to do with his plans. As the mastermind, LiQing insists that he alone should endure the punishment. His father should be spared, and he would beg QiYu to let his family go. QiYu coldly tells him that General Song's execution is due in 3 days. QiYu will spare him if LiQing tells him which poison he used. LiQing does not answer. QiYu leaves the dungeons as LiQing continues to call out his name. In QiYu's mansion, a eunuch begs QiYu to complete reviewing the memorials. With the emperor in a coma, the court needs directions, and they rely on QiYu to fill in the role. QiYu understands what needs to be done and assures the eunuch that he will get to it. QiYu deflates at the number of memorials stacked on his desk. He remembers LiQing urging him to take the memorials seriously, no matter how inconsequential they may seem. Even the little people deserve his attention. Take, for example, the relief funds that QiYu decided to provide to the provinces that were attacked by pirates. The relief funds may seem like small amounts of funds for QiYu, but for the people, they may be the difference between life and death. LiQing urges QiYu to consider each request with patience. They may seem like a bunch of boring words to QiYu, but these little matters make up the country's economy. QiYu waves off the image of LiQing from his head. He lets out an exclamation of frustration. Even in his head, LiQing would nag, and it annoyed him. He knows what to do. QiYu diligently studies the memorials. Unconsciously, he falls back to his old habit of asking LiQing what he thinks about certain topics. When he looks at where LiQing usually sits, he finds the chair empty. Loneliness washes over QiYu. LiQing is no longer with him. He forgot that he sent LiQing to prison. How could you forget? You were just mocking him that morning. QiYu refuses to budge. LiQing is not the only scholar in the world. LiQing is nothing special, and he could get someone else to replace him. QiYu convinces himself that he does not need LiQing. He could be ineffective and just crow prince. He thinks back on what LiQing told him in the dungeons, LiQing's confession that he no longer loves QiYu. These words are like knives sinking into his heart. QiYu slams his fist on the table, annoyed that LiQing's words are haunting him like a ghost. A hooded figure passes through the darkened hallway of the dungeons. The head guard explains that he would not dare allow this figure to enter if he did not have the emperor's token. The hooded figure thanks the man before entering the cage and imprisoning LiQing. This mysterious figure is none other than Prince Lo Lan. At the sight of LiQing's prone figure on the cold ground, Prince Lo Lan immediately rushes to help him, bemoaning how such things could happen to someone as kind as LiQing. Prince Lolan helps him up. LiQing is too weak to hold himself up. He assures LiQing that he is there for him and to no longer fear. I'm really rooting for Prince Lolan. Take him away. Far, far away from QiYu. There is no spot on LiQing's body that is not covered with bruises or wounds. He shivers from the cold. Prince Lolan hugs him to keep him warm, even holding his hands to warm them. LiQing refuses, as his hands are in pain. These words alarm Prince Lolan. LiQing's hands are swelling. It is obvious that the hands have suffered internal injuries, possibly broken bones. LiQing admits that he won't be able to write anymore. It's as if a floodgate has opened, and LiQing allows his tears to flow. The warm glow from the torches illuminates the side of Prince Lolan's place as a thought crosses his mind. Without a care to the wind and to any consequence that would befall him, Prince Lolan asks LiQing if he would come with him to his country. In the desert country of Lolan, LiQing can live out the rest of his life in peace. Prince Lolan describes the place to LiQing to convince him to come. There is a hidden oasis during the summer, and when winter comes, the ground turns into a flower field. He asks LiQing if he's ever seen a wonderful place before. LiQing shivers as he answers, his words filled with regret. He never left the capital, and he regrets that he never traveled far to see such beautiful sights. He may never get the chance to. Prince Lolan insisted that they leave the capital together. LiQing grabs his sleeves as he tells him the truth. They could never leave the palace, resigning to the fate that awaits him. LiQing tells him that he can't leave. QiYu raided his family home, imprisoned his father, and he begs Prince Lolan to save his family. With hesitation, Prince Lolan agrees. LiQing explains that the longevity peaches were from Hu Nu Er. It smells weird, which LiQing finds unusual. The scent is close to sandalwood, but LiQing can tell that it's something else. He asks that Prince Lolan find out what it is. Prince Lolan seems to recognize the scent that LiQing described, with the possible culprit being Hu Nu Er. Prince Lolan's suspicions might be true. Prince Lolan immediately left to find Dr. QiYu. He asks if he has the box of longevity peaches. Thankfully, QiYu has access to all the evidence found at the banquet. Prince Lolan lifts up the food box that used to contain the poison longevity peaches. Prince Lolan lifts up the box close to his face and takes a sniff. The box has a subtle scent similar to sandalwood. QiYu asks if there is something wrong with the food box. Prince Lolan's face hardens, just as LiQing said. The box has a suspicious scent. He needs to handle this with caution. As much as he wants to be the one to defend LiQing, he knows that his involvement will do more harm than good. He asks QiYu to move closer so that he can hear him out. He tells QiYu that LiQing was imprisoned in the water dungeons, and his life hangs in the balance of life and death. Prince Lolan leans closer as he whispers the words that can save the one he loves. Finally, the Emperor wakes. Dr. QiYu assures the Emperor that he's no longer at death's door. As long as the Emperor takes the calming fraught that QiYu prescribes him, he will be as good as new. QiYu thanks the good doctor. To reward him for his hard work, he will promote QiYu to become head of the Imperial Hospital. On top of the promotion, he will receive 100 taels of gold. QiYu kneels towards him in gratitude. However, it is not fame and fortune that QiYu is after. He only has one request. There is an important matter that he wants to bring to their attention. QiYu asks if it is about the poison. QiYu is surprised that the doctor was able to deduce the poison that LiQing used. As much as he wants to know which it is, he'd rather not hear anything related to LiQing. QiYu explains that he researched poisons intensively and found that the poison used on the Emperor is called a Milan fragrance. Its scent is similar to that of sandalwood. When used in a sandalwood box, most people would not notice its presence. The toxin in Milan fragrance is not lethal. However, when mixed with alcohol, its toxicity amplifies. Emperor Jun Xuanxiao comments that Milan fragrance is a traitorous poison to use, and its effects are unpredictable. It was unheard of. QiYu answers that although the Emperor is knowledgeable, it is not unusual that he has never heard of the Milan fragrance, as it is not native to their country. The Milan fragrance is native to the native regions. Upon hearing this, QiYu can easily tell how this would look bad on Hu Nu Er. In denial, he refuses to believe that Hu Nu Er would want to cause him harm. Hu Nu Er has never lied to him. QiYu questions QiYu's intentions. He wants to know if QiYu's words are true and not something he made up to save LiQing. QiYu insists that he is honest with his deductions. He even put his life on the line, just to prove that he was not lying. Slamming his fist on a wooden banister to vent his anger, QiYu realized that Hu Nu-er had fooled him. QiYu sincerely apologizes to his father and confesses that the food box and its contents were prepared by Hu Nu-er. He vows to punish Hu Nu-er severely for his crime. Emperor Jun Xuanxiao is not surprised. He knew that the slave could not be trusted. With his country besieged by QiYu, a fallen prince who had to live as his slave, could never have pure intentions toward his conqueror. As a gracious emperor who has endured the worst, he excuses his son's oversight and just wants QiYu to learn from his mistake. He also wants QiYu to treat LiQing better. It was then that QiYu realized that LiQing was still in the water dungeons, paying for a crime he did not commit. Upon hearing the damage his son has caused, the emperor becomes livid. He throws a bowl of china at QiYu to express his ire. QiYu has done the unforgivable, and there's no going back to how things were before. Not only did he imprison the crown princess, he also caused unrest in the people's hearts and among his avid supporters. In the novel, he beats up QiYu. Songqing was Jun Xuanxiao's most trusted friend and general. Treating him and his family like villains is a gross repayment for his years of service and loyalty. It's a pleasant day. LiQing finally walks out of the water dungeon, his name cleared from suspicion. He walks slowly, but his eyes do not seem to appreciate the sights around him. He stares blankly forward, taking one step at a time. A baritone voice calls out his name. His head tilts to see where the sound is coming from. QiYu approaches, telling him that he came to take him home. He extends his hand to the small of LiQing's back, acting like a husband welcoming his wife home. However, LiQing's body language is far from receptive. He takes a step back from QiYu, and his arm extends forward to create distance between them. LiQing asks where his father is. QiYu tells him that General Song is now free. His honor and reputation have been restored, and he gets to keep his noble title. Everything is now back to normal. LiQing can't believe his ears. There's no way that things will go back to normal. LiQing tells QiYu that he wants to go home to see his father and his family. QiYu answers that his home is at Qilin's mansion, and that QiYu is his family. Not since he threw him to the dungeons. He promised to arrange a meeting between LiQing and General Song at the Qilin mansion. Realizing that QiYu would insist on keeping him in the mansion, LiQing tried one more time to express his wish to go home. QiYu tries to coax him into coming home by acting like a puppy who has been waiting for its master's return. He admits that he wronged LiQing for not listening to his pleas and for making him suffer. He insists that he only did all that because he cares for LiQing. I don't think an apology could solve this. It's also not helping that you're trying to gaslight LiQing. What kind of person could do that to someone he cares for? QiYu offers an apology to LiQing. Surprisingly, LiQing tells him that he's not angry at him. His soft voice does not have a hint of anger or resentment. How could you forgive him so easily? Used to being spoiled, QiYu does not find it strange that LiQing would forgive him so easily. He reaches out to LiQing's hand, intent on taking him home by the hand. However, LiQing snatches his hand away. Annoyed, QiYu asks why LiQing would avoid him if he's really not angry. LiQing answers that he did it out of reflex, as his hands hurt. Like an attentive husband, QiYu wraps the coat around LiQing's shoulders to shield him from the cold. Where's that coat when LiQing was shivering on the cold ground? QiYu did not even consider that LiQing's body was frail before throwing him to the dungeon. QiYu tells LiQing that he would understand if LiQing did not forgive him for now, but he would rather not argue outside, as people may see them. No matter how pointless it is to argue, LiQing gives in. LiQing moves forward, but misses a step. He falls down the last step. Luckily, he felt not too far from the ground, but it still hurts. It was then that QiYu realized that LiQing's eyes could not focus on anything. LiQing waves off his concern. He tells QiYu that he has gone blind. QiYu worries that the punishments LiQing endured caused him to lose his sight. QiYu finally grasps how much damage the punishment has caused. LiQing will never be able to read or write. However, LiQing seems so nonchalant and indifferent. In a tone similar to one talking about the most mundane things, LiQing tells him that he is simply having a relapse from an old illness. QiYu can be assured that he is not at fault. LiQing explains that he used to cry a lot, and that it has damaged his eyesight. How could you go blind from too much crying? QiYu asks LiQing why he never told him this before. LiQing answers that QiYu might find his weakness disgusting. Guilt twists in QiYu's heart, but he pushes it down in favor of getting LiQing home. He tells LiQing that he has already summoned Qi to their home so that he can treat LiQing. Unable to bear the awkward atmosphere between them, QiYu lifts up LiQing's bridal style in his arms. He promised to take LiQing to see his father as soon as he got better. QiYu froze for a moment when he realized something. When LiQing notices that they have not moved from their spit, he asks QiYu if he finds him too heavy. QiYu utters a word, but he can't bring himself to say what he noticed. LiQing is not at all heavy. In fact, he is far too light for a man his age. As if trying to assure himself and ease his guilt, QiYu tells LiQing that everything is all right and that he's taking LiQing home. In the Qili mansion, QiYu attentively cares for LiQing. After checking LiQing's pulse and seeing the extent of his childhood friend's injury, he wishes to be the subject of LiQing's blood disease, but LiQing stops him. LiQing refuses to let anyone else know about his illness. QiYu insists that QiYu should know, so that he can treat LiQing better. LiQing does not see the point of telling QiYu. This is LiQing's way of rebelling against QiYu. He does not think QiYu deserves to know. Before QiYu could protest further, QiYu entered the room. QiYu immediately asks if LiQing's hands will heal and if he can regain his sight. QiYu answers that with time, the damage to LiQing's hands will heal, and his sight will recover after enough rest. What he can't say to QiYu is that LiQing does not have the luxury of time. QiYu's mood lifts up, and he sits beside LiQing to share the good news with him. He assured LiQing that he would be able to read and write again. QiYu bids the couple farewell, promising to come back with some medicine. He lies through his teeth as he tells QiYu that LiQing will be able to go back to how he used to be. Without looking at QiYu, QiYu waves him away, promising to reward him when LiQing gets better. He tells LiQing to get better, so that he can help QiYu with the memorials. Rolling my eyes here, it always has to be about QiYu. QiYu washes a cloth in a basin to help LiQing clean up. When he lifts up LiQing's sleeve, he sees the burn marks left by the iron rod. LiQing seems to have a third-degree burn. This type of burn destroys the outer layer of skin and the entire layer beneath. It's nasty and very painful. QiYu asks LiQing if the burn hurts. LiQing answers honestly, but his expression seems to say that he's numb from the pain. Not wanting to tolerate QiYu's presence more than he has to, LiQing tells him that he wants to rest. Stating that LiQing is treating him coldly, QiYu insists that LiQing forgive him soon, as he has already apologized and admitted his wrongs. Growing up as a pampered and spoiled prince, QiYu hates being ignored. However, LiQing does not care and continues to ignore him. Realizing that he deserves this treatment, he tucks the blanket around LiQing. He promised to wait until LiQing came around. LiQing wakes up in a cold sweat. He was having a nightmare. Upon seeing him awake, QiYu greets him with a bowl of medicinal porridge, ready to feed LiQing. However, LiQing does not have an appetite and asks QiYu to eat alone. QiYu sets the bowl down, standing over LiQing in a menacing way. He is upset that LiQing is acting coldly towards him when he already apologized and they've learned that LiQing's wounds and sight will recover. He wants to know what LiQing wants so that he can be forgiven. LiQing tells him that he does not want to be compensated. If QiYu must do something for LiQing, then he should go on an errand and get a box of Osmanthus cake from the city, and LiQing wants him to personally get it for him. LiQing could be petty. I love this pettiness. QiYu obediently agrees and sets off to get the requested treats. After LiQing is assured that QiYu has left, he gets up and asks Xiao Di to help him get dressed.